Today is the 1st of October. It's not for you, it should be the end of October by the time this goes up. But October, as we all know, is the spookiest month. And I decided that this month I was going to do the scariest thing that I could think of. Truly terror-inducing. I'm going to reread books that I previously rated 1 star. Yeah. Truly horrifying, right? So credit where credit is due. I got this idea sort of from Books and Lala, her channel. She does a lot of these book reading challenges, like she will choose something and she will read within that category just for the month. Her videos are very good. Clearly, I'm ripping her off. I don't think she's ever done specifically this one, but this idea was certainly inspired by her. So I've decided to put myself through the hell of rereading books that I clearly didn't enjoy the first time I read them. I'm doing it for a reason though. A few years ago, quite a few years ago now, I reread Pride and Prejudice, which is a book would almost guarantee I would have previously rated 1 star on Goodreads because I hated it when I had to read it in school. Like, I literally defaced the book. I could not stand it. And then I reread it a few years ago and it got 5 stars from me. So I'm kind of doing this because I think there's probably books that I unfairly rated 1 star in the past. My rating system has changed as I've matured and my views on literature have changed and how I consume media and all of that, blah 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 blah. So I thought there is a high chance here that I will reread some books and I might enjoy them significantly more than when I previously rated them 1 star. But because I cannot for the life of me remember what I've rated 1 star, I'm going by my Goodreads profile because that's where all of my ratings are, so that makes sense. But I can't remember, like, I have a vague idea of a few, but I don't know how many books I've actually rated 1 star, so I don't know how many I'll be reading this month. I'm aiming for around 5, but we'll see. And I have sort of decided that if I've read this book within the last 5 years and I rated it 1 star and I can still remember all of the reasons why it was worthy of a 1 star, I won't reread it because I don't think my opinion will have changed that much in that time frame. Before that, yes, or if during that time I can't really remember the book, then I will give it another go. Does that seem fair? I hope so, because by the time you're watching this, the whole thing will be over anyway, so you don't really get much of an opinion. So, a la Books and Lala's videos, I'm going to go through my Goodreads now and react to it for you. However, I don't know, sorry, my cat's attacking my hand. I don't know because I am kind of technologically inept. I don't know how to get the Goodreads screen onto this video part with me so you can see what I'm looking at. So I'm just gonna have to explain to you what I'm viewing. I hope that's okay. On to Goodreads we go. I've just realised I've not got my glasses on and I can't really properly see my iPad screen from here because I'm that short-sighted. So we'll see how it goes. Right, I want my red shelf. It's taking ages to load. And I want to sort it by rating and I want to reverse. Okay. Okay, so first book, not that big of a surprise because it's a similar situation to Pride and Prejudice, to be honest. The first book that I'm going to be reading this month is The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. I rated it 1 star. I read it like Pride and Prejudice in school. In fact, I don't actually remember reading either Pride and Prejudice or The Scarlet Letter to completion, but I do remember having to read it for like some form of exams. I want to say GCSEs, but I think I was younger than that. I'm not entirely sure. But like with Pride and Prejudice, hated it, defaced the book. So this one is, I think, likely to change. I can't really remember anything about it other than it's set oh my god, I don't even know like what century. Is it 1600s or 1700s? It's like the Pilgrims in America, and it's about a woman who she sleeps with, I want to say a vicar, but I can't really remember. But she then gets branded as a whore. He doesn't, he's fine, he still gets to be the vicar and cool and everything, but she has to go around wearing a scarlet letter A for adulteress. And I know she has a daughter, and that's it. That is all I can remember of the plot. I think it's told through the medium of letters or something. It's definitely like, because it was written in the 1800s, and then, but it's written as if it's in the 1800s and they've just discovered this story. I don't know, I can't remember, but it's likely to change. So, okay, so first one, The Scarlet Letter. Right. Second one, Twilight. Not a surprise, not a surprise. Again, I feel like, so both of these ratings would have been given long after the fact of reading them, because I didn't have Goodreads when I read either of these two books, so these ratings I know would have just been based on memory and how I felt after the fact. And I know I didn't enjoy Twilight when it was a huge thing. Like when the film came out, all of my friends were really fanatical about it, and I hadn't seen it, so I didn't get it. And one of them sat me down to watch it, and afterwards she turned to me and she was like, "Do you get it now?" And I remember just thinking, no, I don't. He had scales. She told me after it was glitter. I didn't realise it was glitter. I thought he had come out as a lizard person thing. I was very confused. So I watched the film, and then another one of my friends gave me the book. We were on holiday and she gave me the book. I think I'd finished what I had been reading, and she was like, "You will like the book so much more, trust me." And the thing is, I would have been about 17 at the time, 17, 18, I'm around that age, and very much had a little bit of a thing of superiority, let's say, and as such, like anything that was popular was not going to be something that I absolutely loved, because I went against the grain. I was different, man. So it kind of, I don't really remember what happens in Twilight. Does it even have a plot? I'm not sure it does, but I again feel like that's possibly unfair. I don't think it will get that much of a higher rating from me, but I'll reread it. I'll go in with more of an open mind than I had when I read it the first time, and with the understanding that Edward Cullen is not a lizard person. He is just a vampire who glitters, which is perfectly normal and usual. Okay, next book. Oh shit. Oh no. Okay. Yeah, even Teddy's not impressed. I could upset some people with this one. I'm sorry. This is also like really thrown a loop through the whole plan. So the third book, please don't hate me, it's Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Oh god, the shame. So, okay, I feel I need to defend myself here. Again, as with the other two, I rated this one long after the fact, but I did, when I read this as a teenager in school, I can't even remember how old I was, but I had been reading the series up until this point, like pretty much as they were coming out, I was reading them. So I read it around the time that it would have been released. I did stop reading the fourth one. Part of the reason for that is I really enjoyed the third book, The Prisoner of Azkaban. I don't know why I'm saying that like you don't know. Everybody knows. I really enjoyed the third book. I think it's because I like time travel when it's done well. I think it's really effective, and I thought it was done well in The Prisoner of Azkaban, and I just felt a bit deflated with Goblet of Fire. I think part of it is, as well, is that I didn't really care about Voldemort, and I was fed up of him being the villain. Like, I think that's why I like the third one so much. So I actually never continued on with the series because I finished like midway through Goblet of Fire. The problem is, it's the fourth book in a series, and I'll be honest, I can't really remember much about the first 3 Harry Potter books. I can't really remember much about the individual plot lines of the Harry Potter stories. I have seen the films, which I'm not a fan of, so I have no nostalgia with this series going into it, which I think will affect it. But do I have to read the first 3 this month before I read that one? Because I don't want to do that. But do I need to? Next one that I will be reading is P.S. I Love You by Cecilia Ahern? I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce her last name. I'm quite surprised that this is rated 1 star. I'm fairly certain I read this when I would have been about 14, 15, and I feel like I really enjoyed it when I read it at that time. But clearly whenever I set up a Goodreads account, I didn't think I did. So I'm quite surprised by that. Again, I can't really remember what it's about, other than it's about a woman whose husband dies and he leaves her notes around the house for her to find after he's passed away. But okay, I will reread it. I can't see it becoming a new favourite, but we'll see. And then that's it. Now we're on to the 2 stars. And we have 4 books that I have to reread, potentially 7. Yes, I know, Ted, that is a lot in 1 month, isn't it? Right, I've got to make a decision here now. 7 books is a lot. And I'm not fussed about rereading Harry Potter. Maybe The Goblet of Fire will be the book that spurs me on, but I think I could just read a synopsis and go straight to the 4th one. Do we agree? But let's do it on the condition that I cannot complain at any point during my reading or after about it being confusing in any way, shape or form. And it cannot lose a rating point for me finding it confusing, because I haven't given myself the knowledge of the first 3 books. Is that fair? Again, you don't really get a say in the matter. You're seeing this after the fact. So I'm going to say that that is fair. So I will read The Scarlet Letter this week, and I will pop back in literally a second. I don't know why I'm saying I'll pop back in. I will update you once I've started The Scarlet Letter some point this week. Okay. I don't know how to end this. I never normally have a video ongoing for a month. So, see you in a sec. Same jumper, different day, different location. So 11 days in, surely I finished The Scarlet Letter by now. Yeah, no, still very much reading The Scarlet Letter. Really not that far into The Scarlet Letter, to be honest. I understand completely why I hated it as a teenager. It is very laborious to read. I've actually got to about chapter 10 now, I think, and that's only because I found it on YouTube, which I think is okay because it will be copyright free now because it's old, so it is technically in the public domain. So I'm listening to it on YouTube, and it's so much easier to take in listening to somebody else read it and intone their voice. To be honest, I took forever to get even to the book, because before you start reading The Scarlet Letter, the story of The Scarlet Letter, there's like an introductory chapter which honestly goes on forever, and it's written by a fictional author about how they came to discover the story of The Scarlet Letter, and it's honestly like the most pointless, boring shit I've ever read. And it was a struggle. I mean, it took me until a few days ago to finish it. It was painful, and I have to say, like, I wouldn't enjoy it is maybe too strong a word, but I've certainly been appreciating it more whilst listening to it on audiobook. It's like I couldn't really remember much of what happened, and to be fair, I don't think there is much of a plot, but from now listening to it and understanding what's going on, I kind of remembered what has happened. So there's been some satisfaction in listening to it whilst already knowing the twists, which is, I don't know whether the word twist is apt in this case, but let's go with it. So like there's definitely been some tension that I perhaps otherwise wouldn't have picked up on as a teenager or cared about, and that's been nice. Again, not sure I would say I've been enjoying it, but I can appreciate how it's been structured, and I think the plot itself is quite interesting. One book not even down, and I've only got 20 days left of the month, so that's good. So I have now finished listening to The Scarlet Letter. I finished listening to it this morning while I was debobbling this jumper, which took an awful lot longer than I expected it to. That's a whole other thing. Getting rid of bobbles, time consuming, it turns out. But I finished reading The Scarlet Letter, that's the important thing, that's the point of this video. So is it still a 1-star read for me? No, I'm pleased to report I liked it. Like is maybe a strong word. I appreciated it more this time around, reading it as an adult, not having to analyse it as a teenager. I think listening to it helped versus reading, but it is now a 3-star read for me, so it's not become a new favourite. I will say, now that I've reread it, I completely get why teenagers have to read it in school. It is most definitely like a really good book to analyse and like look through and figure out the symbolism and everything, because there is a lot going on, and there's a lot of deliberate choices that Nathaniel Hawthorne made that make it sort of prime for taking apart and looking at, and you're just exploring authorial choices. I did like the story. It was just, yeah, it was just told in quite an archaic way because it was written years ago, and it was a period piece when it was written as well. So like the language is always going to be something that you have to overcome, especially if, like me, you don't often read classic literature. Like I'm more of a 20th century lit kind of gal. So yeah, it went from 1 to 3 stars, so that's jumped up 2. So that's pretty good. That feels like a promising start to this video. Maybe the others will be significantly higher. I don't think they will. But that's good. I am kind of glad I reread it. I don't ever plan on reading it again though, and you can't make me. While I was debobbling this cardigan, I also started listening to P.S. I Love You. And I'm not very far in at the moment. I think I said at the start of this video that I was surprised that this one was rated 1 star, because I have a memory of enjoying it as a teenager, and I am in 2 minds about this. Now that I'm rereading it, I have a memory of not liking it, but at the same time, like I don't really know what's going on with my memory, because I can remember not liking it, but there's still a part of me that thinks, but maybe I did enjoy it, because it does feel kind of juvenile at the moment. I don't really know how to better explain that, but it feels like a teen book masquerading as adult literature, which lends itself to the part of my mind that's like, no, I definitely think I enjoyed this, because I think it would have maybe spoken more to my teenaged brain. But then the other part of me that's remembering, no, actually I really didn't enjoy this book, because she wallows for like all of it. It's just her wallowing. And I don't want to like make light of grief or depression, but so far, and obviously I'm not very far in, but so far it does feel like quite a simplistic view of grief, and from memory it carries on that way. It's just very, very simplistic in its take so far, in my opinion, and yeah, it feels kind of juvenile. Okay, so I'm now about halfway through, just over halfway through P.S. I Love You, and I hate it. It's not great. It is, as I said when I first started reading it, it is quite juvenile. She does just wallow. That is all she does. I have more sympathy for it as an adult, but it still, as I say, doesn't feel super realistic. It's not very realistically written, considering it's supposed to be like a real slice of life type thing. I don't buy it. I don't like the characters. They're really annoying. They are, I mean, if it was written in the early noughties, then they would be middle-aged women now, and they're all like middle-aged people, you know, the sort who would be like, I drink rosé every night, I'm mad. You know, the people who share too much on Facebook, they have an opinion on everything and they're all thick as shit. That's these characters. I'm making a huge generalisation, I realise that. I'm not having fun. I mean, the writing is astounding, it truly is. I mean, just one of the gems is she was as dry as Gandhi's sandal. Which is, I mean, are other people's sandals wet? Why specifically Gandhi? Why are his sandals particularly dry? What is it about his feet? Is it a comment on like India? I don't even know, and this is my ignorance here, does India even have a swath of deserts? I thought India was pretty lush, apart from like the city, obviously. Is it known for being particularly dry? They have monsoons, don't they? That's not... I mean, as dry as Gandhi's sandal. Just what does it even mean? It's essentially just a string of events. It's the sort of like anecdotal shit that you get told at Christmas parties by people that you don't see until a Christmas party, like once a year. They're the people that you generally avoid in life because they don't have a sense of humour, but they find everything funny, and so they tell you all of these non-anecdotes and they're like, isn't it hilarious? And you just die inside and try and avoid them at all costs. That's how I feel. So I have now finished listening to, reading, whatever you want to call it, P.S. I Love You, and I didn't enjoy any of it. I cannot pinpoint a single part of it that I liked. I'm genuinely really trying to think, what did I like? I liked, and this is a spoiler for a book that came out well over a decade ago, I liked that she didn't end up with a love interest. The potential like budding romance that the book could have ended with, it didn't. And I really appreciate that it did that, because I think it was actually the most like complex thought process the book provided out of the whole thing. It recognised that you don't just get over your dead husband in a year, no matter how charming somebody might be. Yeah, just nothing about this was for me, but I feel mean giving it 1 star again, so I think I'm gonna give it 2, only because I know that the genre isn't for me, and maybe it's really good within the genre. I find it hard to believe, like there must be really good romance books out there. I'm sure there's one that I would like. This isn't it. 2 stars seems fair, considering some of the issues I have with it might just be genre issues versus the actual book. The next book is going to be Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. I really hope I like it more than P.S. I Love You, because I can't listen to something that I'm really as unengaged with as I was P.S. I Love You again. I can't do it. So I'm not sure I updated you when I actually started reading Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, to give it its full title. by J.K. Rowling, in case you didn't know. But I have started reading Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. In fact, I'm really quite near to the end. I think I have like 10 chapters left to listen to. Okay, so the things that I felt are good are the world building. It is most definitely like a complete world. There's some things that I would question within it, but like on the whole, it is complete. And I think she's done it very well in that it's everything within the world is believable, even if you're like, what, how is that easier than, you know, whatever. So world building is good. I've really liked Hermione. Just from the films, I was never that fussed by her as a character, but actually she's my favourite character in this. She's sort of the only one with a level head, and she isn't as stuck up as I think she can come across in the films, so I really liked Hermione as a character. I wish she was black or mixed race. I think having her be white, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe like her skin colour has never been mentioned in the books and I'm just going based on the films, but I think having her be white misses sort of the point and the theme that surrounds her character being a muggle in the wizarding world, and like the wizarding racial issues, I don't know, wizardism, I don't know what it would be called within universe, but like the issues surrounding that I think would have a lot more meaning if she was a character of colour. And just like a lot of the way that she's described seems kind of racially coded, and just personally as a white reader, it makes me feel a bit iffy when white characters experience something akin to racism. It just is an interesting plot device. And like to tack onto that, I'm not a big fan of the house elves. To have created an entire species that not only is okay with being enslaved but actively wants to be enslaved is a choice, and it's not a great one. It's icky. I don't like it. It's not great, and I get that the point of this plotline is to show how misguided teenagers, or just like young activists, or just activists in general can be when fighting for a cause, and how they can sometimes overlook and not listen to those directly affected, which is a big issue. I just think it could have been applied to something that wasn't slavery, and to be honest I don't see how it's going to be resolved in the amount of time that we've got left, and like maybe it will come up in later books. Yeah, I'm gonna listen to the rest of it now while I play Mahjong on my phone because I'm cool. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire has been finished, and is it still a 1 star? No, it is not. It has moved up somewhat to 3 stars. So my camera battery died just as I started to update you on my thoughts after finishing Harry Potter last night, so I will go through them now. So my reasoning for the 3 stars is because I liked Hermione, so that's like one on the plus side. The world building was effective. It loses some points in that I'm generally not that interested in witchy stuff, but that's a personal preference thing. Like, it's not its fault. So the world building was good, I'm just not interested in the world. She writes teenagers really well. Like, Ron and Harry were really believable teenagers. Like, the spat they had was very teenage boy. The things I didn't like, we've already gone through. The house elves, still hate that. Also, it wasn't resolved as I predicted it wouldn't be. The other thing I'll say that kind of detracts from it is I do think it's really long-winded, and I think it is very clearly set up for the rest of the series, and I could feel that whilst reading it, which is probably also what turned me off as a teenager. And the final thing that, like, I'm just not that fussed by and I said this right at the beginning of the video, is I'm not really a fan of Voldemort as a villain. I don't get his motivations. Like, okay, so he doesn't like non-wizarding folk. And yes, people can just blindly hate an entire race, peoples, whatever. We know that to be true because it happens in real life. But to come back from the dead because of that hate feels extreme. Like, what's his plan? Like, once he takes over the wizarding world, what's his plan? I've not read his manifesto. What's he trying to achieve? I don't get it. I think he has really weak motivations. He's just bad. Like, for the sake of being bad, and everybody who follows him, like, why do they follow him? Just to spoil the ending. Like, he's clearly doesn't treat his followers very well, so why aren't they like, actually, you know what? I don't think I'm gonna follow you, because you are kind of an arsehole. I think he's a weak character. There, I've said it. So overall, it was an alright book. There was nothing wrong with it. It was somewhat engaging, even though, like, the subject matter doesn't interest me personally. I don't think I'll continue on with the series. This hasn't sort of made me go, oh, I get why everybody loves Harry Potter now. I'll be honest, and I'm sorry, I don't mean this in an offensive way, but I do think a lot of the love for it comes from nostalgia, because it's an alright book, but I wouldn't, certainly this one specifically, I wouldn't classify it as anything overly special. And there's nothing wrong with nostalgia. I'm nostalgic about so many things. There's so many films and books, etc. that I love because I read them when I was younger and I have that nostalgic attachment to them, even though they are flawed pieces. And I do think that's the case here. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I think reading it without that, you perhaps lose some of the magic that is in there for everybody else, because they all have that nostalgic reaction to this book that they grew up with, essentially. And now we're on to the final book, which is Twilight. Okay. So I finished Harry Potter a few days ago. It's now the 30th of October. I have read 3 chapters. I'm struggling, honestly, to get into Twilight. Again, as with P.S. I Love You, and they are different, but they are both, I mean, I don't know that you could count P.S. I Love You as a romance, but I guess they would both come under the umbrella of romance. I'm struggling to get into it. Like, I don't care at this point. There's a multitude of reasons why I'm having a hard time with it, but basically I can't get into it. But in an effort to try and get me to read more than I have, I thought, what if I watched the film? Because I genuinely cannot remember what happens in Twilight. I don't know what the plot is, other than, like, he's a vampire that sparkles. So I figure if I watch the film and there's some exciting stuff in it, or I get invested in the film in some way, because obviously it's a lot quicker to watch a film than it is to read a book, then maybe I'll be like, right, okay, well, I want to get to this chapter here because that was an interesting scene. I'm going to watch Twilight now and see if I enjoy it in any way, shape or form. We shall see. Okay, so watching the film has somewhat backfired. I'm halfway through the film now and it's just as bad as I remember it being. I thought maybe I was looking through teenage tinted glasses and just assumed that it was a bit better than I remember it being. It's not. It's like every single actor in this forgot how to deliver a line with any form of decent emotion. It's just so weirdly acted. And I just got to the shiny skin reveal and I've got to say, it still looks like lizard skin to me. He still looks scaly, and so I still don't get it. I don't know if I even want to continue on with the film, let alone read more of the book. This isn't going as I planned. So, did I finish Twilight? Yes, I did. Twilight, what were my thoughts? It's tough because it feels like nothing really happened. It was a very repetitive novel. It was repetitive in that, like, Bella and Edward just continuously say the same things to one another over and over and over and over and over and over. And, well, you know what repetition is. I mean, I was already fed up by the first utterance of I can't live without you, that by the time it popped up the billionth time, like, maybe I'd just become desensitised to it, but it didn't really feel like it meant anything by the end. I'm a bit confused by them as a couple because they don't seem to have anything in common. Like, I can't work out what it is they like about each other than she finds him super hot and he really likes how she smells. I mean, it falls into the trope, and it's a trope that I hate, where two people are just like instantly in love and that's it. For life. I hate that. I've never liked that. I'm a slow burn kind of gal, so that was never gonna bode well with me. Yeah, it's kind of boring, but then it has like these really batshit crazy moments. Like, they start randomly playing an extreme version of baseball, and because of that, other vampires come and want to join in. Apparently this is like a common vampire pastime, baseball, and all the times that Bella, like, literally almost dies, and almost dies not because of vampires, just because of, like, general life, is so weirdly extreme that it was kind of laughable. And then the fact that the climactic finale took place in a dance studio, despite the fact that none of the characters have any background in dance or had ever visited the studio. It was literally just because Bella's mum lived nearby. Like, there was no other reason for it to take place in a dance studio. It could have taken place literally anywhere, and it didn't even, like, the dance studio itself didn't even really play into it. Like, I can't remember any mention of mirrors, or it was just like, why? Why? There were just like some really weird moments where it was just like, why? And I mean, I've already mentioned this so many times, but the glitter skin, like, within this book, so they have like super strength, makes sense, so that, you know, they can crush a bear. It explicitly says that in the text. They are super fast, so they can hunt down whatever. They're all super attractive, so they can lure prey in. I mean, I don't know if, like, you can only be a vampire if you're already attractive, or if, like, the moment your turn, it's like, bam, you turn into a supermodel. Can ugly people turn into vampires? It's never really clarified, but whatever. But, you know, it all makes sense within an evolutionary context that they can do that. So where does the shiny skin come in? Like, how does that help with anything? What's its purpose? I don't get the context of the shiny skin, and it bothers me. The shiny skin bothers me a lot more than it probably should. One thing I'll kind of defend it on, because I see a lot of people complain about this, is the fact that everybody says that Bella is really whiny, like she's too whiny. I have to disagree. There's many reasons why she's incredibly annoying, but being too whiny is not one of them. I didn't find her overly whiny. I found her annoyingly klutzy to the point that it wasn't cute. It was just like rom-com trope 101 but taken to the extreme. It definitely wasn't for me. I didn't enjoy it, and in all fairness to it, it is better than the film. But I mean, that's not saying a lot because the film is atrocious. I genuinely forgot how awful it was. The film is bad. The film is very bad. So in comparison, the book, I don't want to say it's alright, but it's not as bad, which I guess is something. I think I'm going to give it a 2-star, just because I think it is written for the right audience. I don't think it's great, but I'm not a huge fan of YA or romance, and it's both of those. It is appropriately written for a young adult audience, even though some of the themes and ideas in it are questionable, and I would feel bad rating it 1 star again. So 2 stars. So we've come to the end of the whole thing, and before I do my final thoughts, I just want to give an update because I have changed the rating of one of the books I read. P.S. I Love You has gone back down to 1 star because in comparison to Twilight, which gets its target audience right, P.S. I Love You doesn't do that. P.S. I Love You, like that, it had no redeeming factors for me, whereas I can give a couple of small pluses to Twilight. So P.S. I Love You gets a 1 star, which I feel really bad about because I didn't want to re-rate anything 1 star, but that's where my gut takes me. So in conclusion, what did I gain from doing this? Honestly, not a lot. I reread a 1 star book and it was still a 1 star read. So in some regards, my initial thoughts on the books were correct. I mean, Twilight only went up by 1 star, and it, like, in all fairness, in the next couple of days, I might go, actually, no, bugger it, it can go back down to a 1. I don't know. So, I mean, they're not success stories, but I kind of knew when they came up that I probably wouldn't love them. But then the 2 books that I had high hopes for that, like, would really change my mind, yes, they're no longer a 1 star, but they are only 3 stars, which isn't a bad rating in, like, my rating system. But I was really hoping to find like a 4, maybe even a 5-star read, and that hasn't happened. Like, I'm not even interested in carrying on with Harry Potter, and that would have been such like a great success story for me, where it's like for years I was against Harry Potter and now I'm really into it, and that's not happened. But then I don't really know what I expected to get out of it. Like, I already knew I don't like romance. I already knew I'm not particularly fussed by witchy stuff, and I already know I'm not a classics reader. So what did I think would happen? So honestly, it's felt really pointless, especially because there's a lot of books that I have wanted to get to and that I want to get to before the end of the year, but I now don't think I will, that I could have read this month but didn't because I thought this was a good idea. So in conclusion, sometimes your initial instinct to rate a book a certain way is correct, but sometimes you might grow and mature and view things slightly differently, and you might rate them differently, but sometimes you were also right when you were a teenager. So I mean, there's not a lesson here, is there? That's just, sometimes things change and sometimes they don't. Wow, revolutionary. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully I'll see you very soon. Bye!